White House shakeup. The West Wing has seen an unparalleled number of staff departures so far in President Trump's tenure. The latest resignation, of course, this week from White House National Economic Council Director Gary Cohn. Here's what President Trump said about the turnover earlier this week.
I like conflict. I like having two people with different points of view, and I certainly have that. And then I make a decision. But I like watching it. I like seeing it, and I think it's the best way to go. I like different points of view. But the White House has a tremendous energy, and we have tremendous talent.
Joining us right now to talk more about that is the former White House press secretary under President Trump, Sean Spicer. Sean, good to see you.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us. Dayton and I were just talking about this op-ed by Kimberly Strassel in the Wall Street Journal today, and she says Mr. Cohn is the first of the relevant to leave. Your thoughts?
Oh, come on, Kim. I like Kim Strassel.
I'm just saying.
I think I was relevant
okay,
for a day or two.
I'm sorry. I wasn't referring to you. I actually wasn't referring to you.
She doesn't list you in the
She doesn't
long
list
list
you.
people
Yeah.
she was
No,
speaking about.
She lists Hope Hicks, Anthony Scaramucci, Steve Bannon, Sebastian Gorka, and Reince Priebus. And then she says, who cares? But
well,
Gary Cohn,
look,
people
there's
care
some
about.
of those. I think there are some of those folks on that list that I care about.
I walked into
that have been
sorry.
very loyal and instrumental to the president and helping him navigate his first year. So I would take exception to the list. I'm not going to comment on all the names.
But what do you think
specifically.
about, seriously, Gary Cohn's departure? What
I think Gary was a great voice. He brings a ton of expertise to the White House. He really understands markets and business and the global impact that a lot of the decisions that government makes have on not just our industries here, our workers, but on the global market. And it's important. He's an extremely smart man. And I know he worked tirelessly for the president. The tax cuts are largely because of Gary and his team working nonstop to not just sell them, but to implement them and make sure the policy was done right.
Well, maybe, but you also had Paul Ryan working on tax cuts for a long time. But Congress has something to do with it.
They do, absolutely. And I'm not looking to undermine anybody else's role, but I think Gary was instrumental. He played a great role, and I think he served not just this president, but the American people very well over the last year plus.
You're right.
Yeah, I thought he commanded a lot of respect, not only within the administration, but outside of it. Business leaders, including a lot of President Trump's critics, liked Gary Cohn a lot. And one of the things that you saw is that he was working well with Secretary Mnuchin, and we saw that infrastructure was one of their top priorities too. Where does infrastructure stand in this president's agenda now that Gary Cohn's gone?
Well, look, I think that infrastructure is going to be was going to be a tough road to hoe anyway. In an election year, there's only so many legislative days that Congress had on the calendar to begin with. I think the president and the administration is going to lay the framework and the groundwork for it after the midterms. They've got to go out and sell it. It's a very different animal, though, when it comes to getting it passed legislatively. You've got to build a coalition of Republicans and Democrats because you've got both pieces of both parties that don't want it, but pieces that do want it. And so you're kind of threading the needle, getting it through both sides on that. But I don't see it getting done this year. I think they're going to lay the framework, really go out, sell the tax cuts, hope to maintain a majority in both houses, and then push it through after the midterms.
When you have so much turnover, and there was a study done by the Brookings Institution that in the first year of a presidency there was more turnover than in previous recent presidents. Right. But you run the risk of the leaking going on. And I point to that New York Times story about what President Trump asked Reince Priebus and Don McGahn, the White House counsel, related to the Robert Mueller interviews, where he asked Reince Priebus something to the effect of, I mean, according to the New York Times story, that, like, how'd it go? Did they treat you well? But again, it's like you have all these people outside of the White House who are leaking information. And I point to that New York Times story. They're trying to, like, create the whiff of obstruction of justice, and it's questionable. It smells bad. It smells bad.
Right, but here's what I would ask viewers to do right now. Stop for a minute, tune out all the noise, the yelling, the screaming that you see on some cable channels.
I'm not yelling.
Not you, Dave. but stop and say, okay, is the country in a better place than it was, both domestically and foreign policy-wise, and vis-a-vis our allies and our adversaries? And are we better off as Americans? And I think the simple answer is yes. The president's results-oriented, and he's getting results for the American people, whether it's the economy, ISIS, border crossings down, conservative judges up and down the federal bench. If you're results-oriented, if you would rather have a bunch of happy talk and no results, then Trump's not your guy. If you want to have a better economy, more jobs, lower unemployment, then I think that you can say, is it worth maybe reading some editorials that you don't like and some tweets that you don't like from people? Sure. I would rather have a stronger and better country, more people working and higher wages.
Which is why I think you have to look through these tariffs. There's getting a lot of pushback, but he's got a goal. He wants to get a better NAFTA deal.
Right.
Let's face it.
And that's the point that's missing. So many people are commenting on this.
Yeah.
Trump plays the long game as a negotiator.
That's
He
right.
starts with one thing, and look what he's already done. He's exempted Canada and Mexico. He's talked about how 25 and 10 are numbers that can go up and down.
And he's potentially exempting anybody who has a national security relationship with us.
It's disruptive to business. If you're running a company that uses steel every day, you're going, what are you doing to me over here?
But at the end of the day, he's bringing everybody to the table and he's getting results.
Yeah.
By the way,
he's results oriented.
I want to be clear about something. What I was saying is what the New York Times is doing with that story about the communications, it's shady.
Yeah.
That's
what do you
shady.
mean? Why is it shady, Dagan?
Because, again, you have Eric Holder last week saying, I think Mueller, that obstruction of justice charges are going to come. Right. It seems like on the outside that the left is trying to create this idea of obstruction of justice and put pressure on Mueller to do something about it. It just stinks to high heaven.
Wow.
But I have to say, I think, and obviously you've worked closely with the president, that what he's coming out and saying, and he's very open, saying, I like conflict.
Right.
He believes that getting this conflict right is going to get him the right results. Just like you're talking about.
Because you don't know what's going to come out of him next. You know, he's got international leaders on edge. What is this president going to do next? You know what? That's where they should be.
Maybe Sean can point about, but how is he going to get other leaders to come into his administration because they're worried about the conflict he likes? They worry about what he's saying to the media.
What does your gut say? Who fills in? who takes the job? Gary
I think Andy Puzner would be a great pick.
Really?
I think Larry Kudlow's somebody who you know well. He's been on the president's radar for a while. I think both of those individuals have a strong business sense and could keep markets calm and work well with others. That's the key thing. I think those are the two people that I think understand the president. That's the key. It's not just being smart. It's not just understanding markets. But I think getting along and understanding the president's mindset to being able to enact the policies and the strategy that he wants in a meaningful and smart way.
Does getting along with him, working with him day to day mean not disagreeing with him?
No.
Well, Gary Cohn disagreed with him a lot.
Yeah, but he's out there.
But he's out.
He's hitting the bricks.
Right. That's true.
Look, the president said it right there. He likes conflict.
He wants pushback.
But he respects it. He understands it, and then he makes a decision.
Yeah.
And he, look, again, all of this comes back to he is getting results for the American people. And he's doing, this is the thing that's missing. He's the first politician at probably any level of government that actually is doing exactly what he said he campaigned on.
That's a good point. And maybe that's what this country wanted. That's why they voted for him.
Right.
They wanted a bull in a china shop. It wasn't just the businessman. They wanted disruption.
Right.
Then there's this. Fake news travels fast, apparently. A major study published by MIT yesterday found that legitimate news takes 6 times longer to spread than fake news on Twitter. Researchers also found that misinformation is 70% more likely to be retweeted than the truth. I have to admit, I've fallen for it.
Well, I've been the victim of it.
And you've been the victim of it.
So I agree. I think that people are so quick to hit the retweet button and to want to be first, not right. And so I think, and the other thing is that we are becoming a more polarized nation where we're only reading the places and people that we want to, as opposed to looking at the other side. So the second somebody that we know or an outlet that we follow pushes something that we want to believe, we hit retweet or forward.
Yeah. Sean, it's great to get your insight.
You bet.
Thank you so much. Sean Spicer joining us there.